We can start to dive into things. First off, I just want to thank you all for being here. And for those of you who have tuned in since the start of the series, we want to thank you for your continued interest and attendance in the series. For those of you who might not know me, I'm Alana Bell, Residential Buildings Coordinator at NASEO. Um, just to also briefly go over some Zoom logistics, we are recording this call, so please just keep that in mind. We will upload this to the NASEO YouTube channel afterwards and have it posted on the residential page for future reference. Please note too that we have time reserved at the end of the call for Q&A. So throughout our time together today, please feel free to drop questions in the chat or raise your hand. We will, focus on those questions towards the end of the call once we go through all of our panelists' presentations. Um, Let me see here. And just as a brief overview of this call series, so this is the fourth call in our six-part series. So we've already had several on State Energy Office perspectives on multifamily affordability programs, identifying multifamily buildings in need of improvement, resident and owner engagement. Today is on benchmarking and project scoping, and then our upcoming calls in the first week and third week, I believe, of November are on funding and financing, behavior change, and long-term engagement. So we hope you all will be able to join us for those. And as I mentioned, we are recording this series. So the first three are available on the NASEO YouTube channel. And if you'd like access to those, feel free to reach out to either Maddie or me for the link to those YouTube videos. And now, without further ado, I will turn things over to our moderator, Katie Bergfield. Katie, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Alana. Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Bergfeld. I am the Associate Director for the Building Performance Division for the City of Washington. I'll say the state. The District of Columbia, which is not a state, but should be. So I work for the local government in DC, and primarily my job is managing the district's benchmarking and BPS program. But I do work on a few other things, including some capacity building and the workforce development side of things, as well as our appliance efficiency standards program here in the district, and then a few other things that fall under my purview. I've been with the district for almost 11 years. So I've been here since we were just a benchmarking program trying to sort of get up off the ground. So the district was the first jurisdiction in the country to have a benchmarking program in law. Our law was passed in 2008, with the regulations being finalized in 2013. So effectively, we've had a benchmarking requirement in the district for about 12 years now. And for a long time, it really only applied to buildings over 50,000 square feet and has sort of dropped down to 25,000. And then next year, we're going to go down to 10,000 square feet. The scope of our building stock is probably a little bit smaller than some of the other jurisdictions, but we cover about 3,000 buildings right now that are required to submit benchmarking data to us. And I'll say over the years, what we're here to talk about today is what can you do with that benchmarking data and what sort of information does it tell you? And also what are the limitations, right? And I think having had this program in place for a while, we've learned a lot. And I would say the way that we've used the benchmarking data is in a lot of different ways. Just like most jurisdictions, we publicly disclose that information on our website. So there's the idea that that would lead to some sort of market transformation. And then we also have a climate action plan here in the district called Clean Energy DC, which is essentially our plan to get to a 60% reduction in greenhouse gases by 2032 and then carbon neutrality by 2045. The benchmarking data actually, from a policy standpoint, actually contributed to a lot of the modeling that we did in that program, or in that plan, I should say. So we used that data to really project out what our building energy usage would be, looking forward based on where we were at. And our BPS program was modeled in that plan. And again, we use the benchmarking data to do that. The other way that we have sort of used benchmarking data, particularly when we're talking about multifamily, the district has a program called the Affordable Housing Retrofit Accelerator. where we are trying to help buildings that are multifamily affordable housing comply with our BPS. And so they go through the program and they're given a free energy audit. And then we go through and kind of talk through some of the energy efficiency measures that they could implement to get into compliance with our BPS. And then we try to find ways to finance and fund those upgrades. The benchmarking data serves as sort of the foundation of that program. The first thing we do with those building owners is we scrub their benchmarking data. So we take a look at all that data that they're submitting to the district, and we go through and we try to make sure that it's actually matching up on the ground of what's going on in the building. Because as you can imagine, some of these folks are not always reporting things the most accurate way possible. And so we are often educating folks on how to use Energy Star appropriately. And I know Kudrat will have a lot to say about that. And then we're also trying to use that information to inform policy making, to inform decisions with the building owner. It's a small bit of information, but it can actually show you a lot, which I think Kudrat, Jesse, Joe, and Ray will talk about sort of the ways that you can really use a small bit of information to tell you a lot about what's going on in a building and some indications about where you could find opportunities for improvement. So I'm really excited to be here to moderate this discussion. I think it's going to be very informative and very helpful for a lot of you folks on the line, again, to see how you can use simple bits of information to tell you quite a lot. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Kudrat. And Kudrat, if you want to introduce yourself quickly and then get into your presentation, that'd be great.
Hi, Katie. Good to see you. Can you hear me? Awesome. I will show my face very briefly and then turn my camera off to conserve my bandwidth. I've been having issues with my connections. Hello, everyone. This is Kudrat. I have been in benchmarking and building performance standard space pretty much since they all began, except for benchmarking. Actually, benchmarking under Energy Star program started back in 1997, 98 area. I joined the workforce in 2001, and since then I've been supporting EPA's Energy Star program, mostly on the public sector portion. I have prepared some slides. I'm gonna share my screen and turn my camera off. And just go through my slides. I try to keep it really high level. So it's not going to be like benchmarking 101, right? But I'll try to give you some high level information about what multifamily benchmarking looks like. All right, sharing. Okay, I believe it's this. Okay, here we go. So again, this is Kudrat. Let me start the session, and Katie, please let me know if I'm too slow or too fast.
Yeah, we can't see your slides right now, Kudrat, if you're sharing them.
You can or cannot?
I cannot.
Oh, I selected. 1 second. Okay.
There we go. They're coming up.
Yeah, hitting share button helps.
There we go. We got them.
All right. So my first slide just had my name, so I'm not going to go back, but I just would like to give you some very high level information. EPA estimates that about 30% of the residential households are living in multifamily properties, and about 30% of the energy that folks use in those multifamily buildings go to waste. EPA also estimates that with little or no cost measures, energy use can be reduced by about 10%. So let's take a look at what portfolio manager is about. So I hope that most of you already know, so I'm going to be very quick on this one. Benchmarking will allow you to compare your buildings against the national set of properties across the United States. That comparison is really based on property type, multifamily against multifamily, offices against office buildings, etc. If you have a larger portfolio of properties of the same site, the same type, you can also compare your own buildings against each other. Eventually, any building type, any property type can be benchmarked in Portfolio Manager, including tenant spaces, a portion of a property, given that that portion is fully submitted for all field types. Or you could also benchmark your campuses or office complexes. You would be able to evaluate your portfolio-wide performance, identify properties that are energy hogs or that have best practices. So your buildings can learn from each other. Portfolio Manager provides a national median for each property type. So you will be able to compare your energy use intensity to those national medians. And then, I think one of the most important aspects of benchmarking is that you are looking at that data on a regular basis, hopefully monthly. If you have the data, go even beyond that and look at time of use type of data to understand inefficiencies in your building so you can address them as quickly as possible. And I think you all know this, but using Portfolio Manager, you can keep track of your energy use, water use, and do waste management in one tool. It's no cost. The tool is Portfolio Manager for multifamily properties. You will have the option to see both Energy Star score for energy performance and 1 to 100 water score. But this is only for multifamily properties. EPA was not able to create water score for other property types because of lack of data. There are a lot of jurisdictions across the US. This is an IMT map that I used to manage in old days under EPA Energy Star program. Katie, you will remember from your days that you probably helped me update this map as well at some point. So I think it's a growing trend. There are about over 50 jurisdictions across the US that has either benchmarking and or building performance standards. Some do have multifamily benchmarking mandates, some don't. You can find more information on their IMT website, imt.org. Uh, put this together to show you what type of benchmarking, building performance policies local and state governments are passing. Most of them are about benchmarking and disclosing energy use information, and that's what Katie said for DC. But that's not usually enough. Benchmarking Act itself does not really save energy, so you have to do something about using that data to determine inefficiencies, potentially set targets for your properties, and then ask them to meet those targets. That's where building performance standards come in. Several jurisdictions ask building owners to do audits or retro commissioning. And eventually they try to move into building performance standards. And building performance standards could be in two fronts, sometimes only in energy. In some jurisdictions like Washington, D.C., they also look at Washington, D.C. and Colorado, state of Colorado. They also have targets for greenhouse gas emission intensity targets. Oh, I went too fast probably, or right on the spot, it seems like, Katie. Back to you.
Thank you, Kudret. Yeah. Thank you so much for that background. Now we're going to move into hearing a bit more about a specific program that focuses on multifamily financing program and funding upgrades in buildings. So Ray, I'd like to introduce Ray from Enterprise Community Partners.
Thanks, Katie, and thanks everyone for joining, and really happy to be here with you all today. I'm going to share a little bit about our Green Communities Criteria Standard and Certification Program. And benchmarking is included as part of it, but it is really wrapped in a lot of other things as well. I'll share a little bit about how partners are using benchmarking data and how we've been using it as we've been in an update cycle for our program. Could you go to the next slide, please? So for folks that have not don't know about our program, we are an above code sustainability standard created explicitly and exclusively for affordable housing. We have sort of all the sort of trappings of your typical sustainability standards, but we also have all of the healthy building environment and indoor air quality and components that you think of with a sustainability standard. A couple key things that we also do are we talk a lot about pre-construction planning and integrated design, and of course benchmarking data, building performance data, information of how existing buildings, whether it's a renovation or other buildings in a portfolio are operating, are exceptionally helpful during those things. And our program also talks about operations and maintenance, which is very important to make sure that buildings are operating as they were designed and planned. I'm going to talk a little bit about two different things today. One is going to be our 2020 criteria, which is the current version, which is on the, I guess, on the market, on the internet, but also our updates and what we've been doing there. Can you go to the next slide for me? So I think a key thing to understand is that, and many of you probably already know this, but for those that don't, sustainability requirements have become very powerful in the affordable housing space because of the way affordable housing is funded. There is an extraordinary premium on sustainability as a key lever to make projects better, to deliver more for their residents and in their community, and to help cities and states meet their sustainability goals. So as part of that, and through the qualified allocation process, which is operated by state housing agencies and authorities, through this qualified allocation plan, they can really direct a great deal of attention towards improving building performance, towards driving benchmarking adoption, towards sustainability goals more broadly. So Green Communities is the most cited sustainability standard in the sector for this affordable housing space in over 29 state QAPs, and incentivized in many that we're not required in. And then there's a lot of cities that we collaborate deeply with: New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago as well. So if you're looking for like a point of collaboration and a way to like really provide some catalytic change, it would be you all or folks from your offices really working with the housing agencies and housing authorities to really see how you can collaborate and drive change together. Next slide. This is a really gnarly looking map. But what I do think it indicates is that, our program has been approved or is being used in states across the country. So even states where we are not in the qualified allocation plans, we're having projects built, and we're dealing with projects across all sorts of different typologies in the affordable housing space. Go to the next slide, please. So for those who are not as familiar with our program, we only do affordable housing. So that's really the explicit focus of the program. We have some affordability requirements. We do projects that are new construction all the way through to moderate rehabs. And we have a series of different requirements that are really tuned to what those projects are able to do. We do see some adaptive reuse projects come through as well. I'd say the lion's share of projects that use our program are multifamily affordable housing, though there are some single family, and we've done work on tribal reservations as well, trust land. So the program has been used across a lot of different typologies. And our program is set up in a way that there are a series of mandatory requirements which everybody needs to meet. and then an optional a la carte standard. So a difference between our program and some other programs that we have kind of this both and approach. So we kind of like set a floor and then allow folks to be opportunistic where they can. Next slide, please. And this is our certification program in a really quick snapshot. We do full day trainings on all of this, so this is really like a pretty quick gloss. But our program is set up so that way program sets some intention, and in this case, specifically around the performance standards they're going to be met, that they will be meeting through modeling, and then at post build. We get confirmation of that through testing, and then projects will be benchmarking their performance for at least 5 years, and they share that information with us so we can understand how those buildings are performing. And our partners generally, we've been in the benchmarking space for well over a decade at this point. Really just using it as a tool for folks to operate their buildings and really drive change through those buildings. At first, it was very complicated. It is still a little bit complicated, but I would say that the impact of it, or the potential impact of understanding how your buildings are performing, has become evident. And so the pushback we're getting less now is on the concept of benchmarking. Everyone's pretty great on the concept of benchmarking now, but the questions are just around the mechanics of how the buildings are designed so that they can be benchmarked in a way that is impactful, and then the mechanics of getting them into systems. Next slide, please. Just a quick gloss while we're wrapping up. I'm coming up on time, but every 4 or 5 years we update our standard. And this is one of those years. So next year we'll be releasing the 20th anniversary edition, or the 2026 version of the criteria. Benchmarking, high performance building, carbon neutrality are all aspects that will be part of our update. And so I think for you all, it'll be something to pay attention to, and maybe have conversations with you all next year once we're fully launched. Next slide, please. So this is just, kind of a snapshot of what we've done. If anyone wants to hear about the process or the timeline or the engagement that we've done to sort of settle where we're settling, happy to do that offline as well. Some things to understand: the same sort of trajectory of the program: new construction through rehabs, adaptive reuse as well, urban all the way to rural typologies, all acceptable. Mandatory thresholds with optional requirements, all of that staying the same. But we are seeing sort of a movement towards high efficiency buildings, higher performance standards, and trying to reduce the carbon impact of projects. And so we're making some much needed calibrations to sort of drive the program that way. There's a lot on resilience as well. The storm events are becoming more frequent and more severe. So we've got some new opportunities there. And then, we're trying to sort of bring this benchmarking concept through. I mean, we're not alone in this, of course, but the folks that are thinking of benchmarking as an idea and bringing it into the material health space as well, trying to bring that across too. And one more slide. And just to get super clear about some things that might be exciting, we are going to be having a new criterion in this upcoming standard. It will be optional, but it's really going to help folks create a zero carbon over time strategy. And while some of the incentives at the federal level may not be there, or might be, I guess, a little uncertain at this point, at the state level, there's still a lot of incentives to do this. And we know there are a lot of policies that are driving it as well. So part of our program is going to have a new optional criterion with some tools and templates to allow folks to create a zero over time strategy to help drive towards that zero emissions building in a way that is sensitive to the fact that capital improvements can't be made every year. We still have building performance baselines, and our program will continue to require energy benchmarking of all projects. So that's the end of my slides. I would say, our program is, if you take one thing away, we're a program that's for affordable housing explicitly and exclusively. We work extensively with state housing agencies and housing authorities to help set what a sustainability requirement is for that housing agency. And we're using benchmarking in ways that are allowing us to calibrate the program, but also bring folks, affordable housers, developers, owner-operators into a room where they can have real-time or near real-time information about how their building is being operated and can make adjustments for their residents' comfort and safety in real time. Thanks.
Thank you, Ray. Okay, those are two great presentations. So now we're going to move into hearing from Jessie Jo from the City of Reno, who is going to talk about Reno's energy benchmarking program that they have for their public buildings, and I think specifically focusing on multifamily buildings as well in their presentation. So I'll hand it over to Jessie Jo. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Hi all, I'm Jessie Jo. I'm the Environmental Services Management Assistant for the City of Reno. I run our energy and water benchmarking program. Our city council passed this benchmarking ordinance in 2019, so we're about 6 years into running the program now, and I'll kind of give you all a brief overview of the components of our benchmarking program, and then I'll talk a little bit about how we constructed it, the challenges we faced, and how we use that data. So next slide, please. So the first couple of slides are a little bit more boring because I'll just be going through the components kind of detailed. But essentially, the first part of our ordinance is strictly benchmarking. So we require energy and water benchmarking for essentially all commercial properties within the City of Reno jurisdiction that are greater than 30,000 square feet. We don't include manufacturing properties or industrial or warehouse or storage properties in that. And then we have kind of a smaller threshold for our municipal buildings. So anything owned by the City of Reno that is greater than 10,000 square feet, as well as all of our fire stations, we report our energy and water data for those. Under our benchmarking requirements, buildings need to report their basic information, such as address, their building square footage, what their property use type is, and then their parcel ID number. And I will say that we use Energy Star Portfolio Manager. We have all of the covered properties need to submit this data through Energy Star Portfolio Manager. As Kudrit said, it is a free program, so folks don't have to pay to benchmark their data. Apart from that, then they need to submit their energy and water data. All of their energy data should be coming from the utility, which is NV Energy here in Reno. They do need to be submitting both their electric and gas data each year. And then water comes from our water utility, which is the Truckee Meadows Water Authority. Data is due by April 1st of each year, and then any property that is non-compliant, so they don't report their data and they don't submit an exemption or a request for an extension, I'll send them a warning first, and then if I don't hear from them within a month, they are to be fined $100 for each month that they're not compliant. And I will say we do allow exemptions for our properties, and we have a few specifically for multifamily buildings. And one of those is if a multifamily building has a Enterprise Green Community Certificate, they can be exempt from those benchmarking requirements. So Yeah. So shout out to Ray there, but we do want to make this benchmarking can be a lot of work, and we recognize that. And so we kind of want to encourage those properties that might be doing that extra work to get those green certificates. We want to make it a bit easier for them to benchmark. Okay, next slide, please. And so our ordinance is actually twofold. The first part of it is benchmarking. And as I said, this was passed in 2019. So for the last few years, we've just been requiring that energy and water benchmarking from our commercial properties. But starting next year, we will actually be moving into the second phase of our ordinance, which is building performance standards. So next year, our municipal buildings will need to comply with this. And then starting in 2028, we'll start looping in those larger commercial buildings as well to comply with those building performance standards. But essentially, we'll be using that benchmarking data to establish a baseline for our properties that are covered under the ordinance. And they'll have to meet these building performance standards. And I listed a few of the metrics that we use. So they'll need to either achieve an Energy Star score of 50 or higher, or achieve a score of 15 points higher than their baseline year. There's a few other ones, and then we have a few specific to water as well, which are pretty similar to the performance standards required for energy. And then our ordinance has several pathways that buildings can follow if they don't achieve any of those building performance standards. We have a list of pathways that they'll need to go through in order to improve their building's energy and water performance. All right, next slide, please. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how we built this ordinance. It was passed by council and constructed before I started with the City of Reno. So my manager was responsible for putting this ordinance together. But I wanted to say that this was a very collaborative process. And in constructing this ordinance, she held several kind of workshops while this was being created with stakeholders from different industries like commercial buildings or multifamily buildings, folks from the environmental sector, folks from the government sector. She held these workshops and had folks come in and be able to talk about what they would want to see from the ordinance, what they didn't want to see from the ordinance. She also offered a matrix of kind of good, better, and best language as far to gauge what folks wanted to see in the ordinance. And then she also met with council members and other agencies that might be in opposition to an ordinance like this to kind of mediate and work with them to both pass this ordinance that would require those benchmarking standards, but then also get their feedback to see, what they would be okay with. And then we provided a lot of trainings about benchmarking and building performance standards. And then we still have council briefings regularly with our council members to update them on how the ordinance is going. I do office hours every Thursday during our benchmarking season so that anyone who's a covered property can hop online and essentially just ask me any questions that they have about submitting their data. Next slide. So this is pretty brief. I'm wrapping up here, but because this was such an engaging process in the construction of the ordinance, we didn't have a ton of challenges as far as putting it together goes. Because my manager anticipated that there would be some opposition or that there would be some concern about the costs or the time constraints for reporting. Because we looped people into this process very early on, there weren't as many challenges putting up the ordinance. I will say now that we're a few years into running it, we've faced some challenges as far as collecting certain pieces of data or as new buildings are constructed or more people are looped into the ordinance. I get a lot of questions or concerns every year about, am I in compliance? How am I supposed to do this? This is a lot of work. But that's why things like the benchmarking office hours and continued trainings help. And then this should be the next slide, should be the last one. Oh, maybe I sent you the wrong one. Anyway, I just wanted to say we post a report every year with the data that we collect, and I highlight buildings that performed well, buildings that might need a little bit more work. And then each year after I collect all of the data from folks, if there are buildings that are performing more poorly, or maybe we see, wow, they're really using a lot of energy, which is not normal for their building type, we've partnered with a few organizations over the last couple of years to offer either subsidized or free energy audits, so that buildings can get a better idea of what they might do to improve their performance. And we have had a few success stories as far as people emailing in and saying, hey, I never knew about this. And once I started benchmarking, we implemented some new energy efficiency technology, and we've kind of reduced our utility bills by decreasing that energy usage. And that is all I have, and I'll stay on for questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jesse Joe. So I know that Alana said this at the beginning, but if any folks, so that's all of our presentations. Now we're gonna jump into some Q&A. If any I haven't seen any questions come through the chats, unless I'm missing anything. But if you do have a question, you can go ahead and put it in the. Are we having people put it in the Q&A section, Alana? Is that where we wanted it to go?
I don't think there are in the Q&A or the chat, but either is
The
fine.
chat or the
We can
Q&A?
pull from both, yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen any questions come through, but I have a few clarifying questions as I was listening to the presentations. So Kudret, I know that you know a lot about this, and this is a question that we get asked a lot in our jurisdiction, is pretty much every jurisdiction uses Energy Star for their benchmark reporting and typically for their BPS. Could you talk a little bit about what you know to be you talked a bit about the benefits of Energy Star, but we get feedback sometimes about the limitations potentially of the Energy Star model. And I don't know if you have heard any feedback on that either, and how someone could potentially address that or kind of anticipate it, if that makes sense.
What kind of obstacles are they running into? Do you have
Oh,
any
well, I
specific
hear
example?
folks say, well, the model doesn't apply to my building because my building's too big. Or the model doesn't apply to my building because I have a law firm that runs 24/7. So it's not fair that my office building is being compared to a building that doesn't run 24/7. And so a lot of folks perceive that there are limitations to the model. And I'm just wondering if you have sort of heard those questions, and I know you've heard those
Yeah.
questions, how you address them.
Yeah. There are definitely limitations to the tool, but the two examples that you provided, they are actually already in the tool. So sometimes people do not know how to use the tool or very specific features that EPA put in place to resolve those issues. And sometimes it's just lack of knowledge, right? And sometimes we definitely know that Portfolio Manager is not the perfect tool. And EPA definitely is working towards making it as such. Um, there's a feedback collection mechanism, Katie. You or other folks who have benchmarking or building performance standards programs they're running, they can definitely send an email to EPA Energy Star program through their Buildings Help portal. If you send me any questions, I would be more than happy to forward them to the EPA. They collect these feedback and look at each one of them seriously and try to pick and choose the ones that would most benefit most of the building owners. So that's their kind of prioritization criteria. Once that decision is made, depending on the updates, some of those updates could take like a day, and sometimes they would have to do serious programming, and that programming could take several months, sometimes years. It really depends. But I know for sure, and I have supported Energy Star public sector for 25 years. We have gone through a lot of those updates. Portfolio Manager definitely is a much better tool compared to what I started with the first version. I think when I first benchmarked my building, we had 1,500 or 2,000 buildings. Now, just in New York City, we are talking about 50,000. In DC, thousands, right? A couple thousands. So number of buildings keep increasing, and EPA will continue making those updates to benefit. There was the last push. Katie, I believe you were uh, in a little group that we collected around a table to receive feedback specifically from local and state governments that had building benchmarking and building performance policies. We collected that feedback, a lot of great feedback, and that feedback the EPA started implementing. Then the current situation with federal government, everything came to a halt, to my best knowledge. But I know EPA implemented a good portion of those feedback that we collected from you all, and the other feedback that is doable at the moment. We will just have to wait and see how federal government is going to proceed with that. I hope
Thanks.
that answered.
Yeah, no, you answered the question. I just wanted to point out because we get that question a lot, and I'm sure Jesse Joe, this happens to you too. I have this really weird situation going on in my building. I don't think portfolio manager can account for it. And Kudra is correct. Like we often can help them at the jurisdiction level, but we also will reach out to EPA and say, how do we deal with this situation? And they're really good at getting back to you and sort of providing guidance. So if you
Yeah,
ever are running into a very weird situation, Kudrat is correct. Reach out to EPA. They often either, first of all, their help FAQs are really, really good. So they have a really good FAQ
thank
section.
you.
So always check the FAQ first. And then second of all, you can reach out to them if you get to something really tricky. And so that actually, I see a question for Jesse Joe. So I'm gonna pass it over because I'd like to get audience questions answered. Jesse Joe, someone's asking, how did you decide? Oh, Maddie, it said, how did you decide on $100 fine? And do you think it's meaningfully getting people to comply? And it's $100 per month, right? Correct?
Yeah, yes. So I knew someone would ask me about that, and I'm actually not supposed to use the word fine. So scratch that.
Payments. We say
Penalty, yes.
payments.
Yes, the penalty payment. So that I was part of the kind of workshop meetings with stakeholders was we need to have some sort of repercussion for folks that don't comply with the ordinance, but we don't want to make it super scary so that people are opposing the ordinance and panicking when it goes to council. And then we also wanted something that would continue to help build our program. So actually any fee that's paid to us through that non-compliance penalty payment goes directly back into our ordinance and paying for our program. What I will say is since we are a smaller program and I am essentially the only person running our benchmarking, is that we at this time don't have a great way of enforcing this penalty payment. So even when I do send it out to folks who are non-compliant and I haven't heard from them, we don't necessarily have a way at this moment to enforce that, which can be kind of frustrating. But what I will say is, regardless, when I started a couple of years ago taking over this program, we were at about 25% compliance. And this year, we had 64% compliance. And a lot of that is just I've been sending a ton of emails to everyone on our covered properties list and reaching out to those businesses and saying, hey, are you aware of this program? There can be a lot of benefits. I've started offering more trainings, those office hours. And I've just been kind of trying to make myself as available as possible to these covered properties. And I'm trying to give them as much education as possible so that they understand that this isn't a scary, mean ordinance to make running their business more difficult, but that actually we do want to help. And so, yes, what I will say is this penalty payment, it is there, and the goal of it is to put some teeth behind this ordinance to get folks to comply. But really what I would say is that providing that education and giving folks resources and saying, hey, you know, I did notice that your building isn't performing well, but we have this partnership and you can get this subsidized or this free audit. Doing things like that has been much more constructive, and it's helped progress our ordinance much more than the penalty payment.
Yeah, I'm going to back you up on that, Jesse Joe, because it took us a long time to get our compliance rate up. We're in the 90s now, which is great. But
Excellent.
It took us a while, and it was a lot of different tools that we had to implement. But I will say we are pretty active in our enforcement over here, and it really does sort of make the relationship difficult when the first time someone's hearing from you is they're getting a fine, right?
Exactly.
But when you start off on that foot, it can make things difficult. So I agree that sort of going in with more of the carrot perspective, leaning into that more than the stick side is very helpful for people. We've learned our lesson in a lot of different ways. Yeah. So yeah, our penalties are, we have the authority to do $100 a day. We do not do that because, as you said, that would be outrageous to fine someone, $30,000 a month. Or did I just do the math? Did I do the math right? So yes, I fully understand that perspective. Ray, I had a quick question about when you talked about the integrated design portion of green communities. How does sort of data play a role in that process? And it doesn't even have to be benchmarking data, but I'm just
it's a great question. So the integrated design process is, there's a whole legacy of charrettes and green charrettes, which have been, kind of a part of the lexicon for a while. But really, the integrated design process is just the entire process that somebody working from early stage schematic design or conceptualization all the way through towards construction documents to make sure that intentionality gets through to projects. I think the way that data is used is really in the best case scenario, we have operators of existing buildings, or if it's a retrofit, operators of that building participate in the pre-construction planning meetings, the charrettes, with the rest of the development team to bring that knowledge there. That information can be, we can't replace the filters on these HVAC units. It could be that the bills are extraordinarily high for these units. Could be because of the solar situation or the lack of tree coverage or the systems actually failing. It could be, really anything that they're bringing to the conversation, but the having folks that are operating the building with the data that they have of that building or of analogous buildings, because most buildings operations and maintenance of affordable housing, sometimes folks are operating multiple buildings. So, they have a perspective that really influences how the design team, which is, one step removed and often doesn't hear from those folks or have that feedback loop. Yeah. Especially, in the affordable housing space, the way to build this product is really well defined. People know how to do it in a certain way, and it can become formulaic. So this process of integrated design is a really great way to learn and create a feedback loop that should be there when it so often gets skipped. I also don't think it's punitive. There are really quick and effective ways to get this feedback that doesn't require, months of consultants and everybody. It's just not. It doesn't need to be that complicated. And you can call us. We'll tell you we got templates. We got ideas. We can direct folks. it can really be done effectively and pretty gracefully, if you ask me.
And pretty low cost, it sounds like too,
Very, yeah,
which is what a lot of people are concerned about, especially when they're just in the scoping process.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, it's mostly like a pizza cost.
yeah, right. Yeah, I think we also are finding that you can do a lot with like either free tools and resources or low cost tools and resources. I mean, we had a building come to us that was like we can't do anything to increase to increase the efficiency of this building, and we took a look at their benchmarking data for about 5 minutes and saw that their gas was peaking in July in DC, and we were like, that doesn't seem like that's right. There's probably something wrong with the controls. And sure enough, there was something wrong. And that literally just took 5 minutes of looking at their data to tell them that, right? So you're right, it can be pretty simple. And that's why I like tools like green communities, because it breaks things down very simply. And I really like the idea of and the feedback that we hear over and over again is include facilities people in the conversation from the beginning, because it is key to making sure these projects are successful. Jesse, you got another question. You're very popular. The question, it looks like, came from Kudret. Do you want to just ask it, Kudret?
Sure, yeah. I didn't want to just send it out there. I wanted her to see it first. So, Jesse, my question is, you mentioned that your compliance rate was around 60%. Did I get that right? Yeah. So the remaining 40% is probably the toughest cookie you have there. How do you plan on capturing those remaining 40% properties? And what do you think is the issue there? Is it because building owners do not have the data, they don't have interest in benchmarking and dragging their feet, or you simply don't have their contact information, you don't know how to get in touch with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. So at this point, that remaining, so yes, we're up to 64% compliance, and that remaining 35% is essentially those properties that we don't have contact information for, and a lot of them, the building owners aren't even necessarily residents of Reno. Um, so what I have started doing to get contact information in the first place, because when I took over the ordinance, we probably had 100 properties reporting out of the nearly 600 that are covered. So what I did was I sent a mailer, a physical mailer out to those building owners, and I said, hey, you're not in compliance with this ordinance. Do you know what this ordinance is? Um, if you send me your contact information, we can talk more about it, and I can exempt you for this year, and we can get you on track to be in compliance for next year. And that worked really well. And that's when I started getting a lot of contact information. And, some folks are panicking. They're like, I didn't even know, I'm so sorry. And it's like, no, it's okay. We're really we want to spread the word. We want to get you on track. And so each year I send out those mailers to the remaining properties that I don't have contact information for. And it's sort of a similar deal where you just say, you're not in compliance. Do you know about this ordinance? If not, send me your contact information. I'm happy to talk with you about it. I set up Zoom or Teams calls with essentially anyone who is like, I don't know what this ordinance is. Can you please explain to me how to use Energy Star, where I'm supposed to find the data? Basically anything benchmarking related. So that's the plan for increasing compliance.
Great. Yeah, it seems like people are collaborating once you get in touch with them. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Katie, do you have the same issues in DC?
Well, I was just gonna comment. I really like the approach of, hey, like we'll exempt you for this year. Just get yourself in compliance. Like we
Yeah,
can we can be a little heavy-handed sometimes over here. So we did used to have that issue. I think so when we create our covered building list, which is like the list of buildings that we're pretty sure are over the square footage threshold, we just pull it from the tax data. And then we have all of the owner information from the tax data. But I think this is similar in a lot of jurisdictions. The owner name is like 123 Main Street LLC. It's all these LLCs that you don't actually know who the person is, like the entity is behind that LLC. But all we can do from a legal, like, because we're, this is a regulatory program, we can really only use like official legal names to contact these folks. one of the things that really helped us, one is working with industry organizations like BOMA. So if you have a BOMA local over there, they're often helpful in getting in touch with owners or whatever other industry organizations you might have over there. So we have like I said, we have BOMA, we have the Building Industry Association here in the district. There's a cooperative housing coalition that helps us get in touch with the cooperatives and the condominiums. So we use that leverage a lot, and then the other thing that we've done is every entity in the district has to have a registered agent to accept documents on their behalf. And so we were able to pull that list of registered agents and match it up with the owners. And so that's been helpful because they have to accept information on behalf of the owner. That was helpful. And then the other thing I'll say is one year we just literally took the buildings by ward and we emailed every single council member and we said, here's the buildings in your ward that are not in compliance. And that actually, some of the council members were like, oh, okay, like I know these building owners, let me talk to them. And so that was helpful too. But it takes a lot of different strategies. And to Jesse Joe's point, it takes a lot of work. And I was one person once supporting this program, Jesse Joe, so I know how that is. Now we have a team of people, but it takes a lot of work to really get people to engage and pay attention.
It does.
Because they have a lot going on. They really do. And to your point, Kujra, we found that most people are not doing it out of malice. They're doing it out of not knowing that they need to do it, or we're talking to somebody who is a facilities manager that has 15 other things that they're dealing with, and this is not their top priority, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a multifamily building where there's a lot going on, right?
True.
We have about 3 minutes left, and I had one last question. And I can just open it up to all three of you. What do you all see as some of the greatest challenges you've faced in implementing either a benchmarking program or the program that you work on, and sort of how are you addressing those challenges?
Maybe I can start, Katie. As an Energy Star consultant, I'm also supporting Building Performance Colorado program. I manage that project to help them run their help desk with a large team during high season. That's a quite large portfolio. About when we finish our work, it's going to be over 8,000 properties, but compliance is a little bit low these days. I guess the biggest challenge to come up with a BPS program and implement it is to come up with that building owner list, finding the right people from the get-go. We are still suffering from that for the Colorado Building Performance Colorado program. Building ownership keeps changing. There's a lot of staff changes and they don't let the next person know that there's this kind of program or give us their email address. So it was kind of a selfish question when I asked it to both of you. So I can get some tips and really interesting ones. The other one is lack of data most of the time on the building owners, and usually they have access to the latest year or two most of the time through their utility companies, or they don't throw away their PDF bills. But once you set a baseline farther from the current year, it becomes an issue. They are not able to find that baseline data, then you need to think about potential remedies to their individual issues.
Thanks. We're at time, but I don't know if Jesse, Joe, or Ray want to add anything to that, or Alana, if you want to close up, I'll let you take the lead.
No, feel free. You all can answer the question. We can wrap up a little bit or later.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Kudrat just said. The staff turnover can be really difficult year over year. Even though we are getting compliance increased, it still feels like I'm starting from scratch every year sometimes, because I'll have so many folks reach out and be like, oh, I just took over this property and I have no idea what's going on, and they didn't tell me that that we had to comply with this ordinance. But just again, I think that's where doing the trainings each year and providing office hours just really comes in handy and helps folks just kind of reset each year and prepare for the ordinance. But yeah, everything that he just said is essentially the challenges that we go through. So I don't have much to add.
Yeah, I yes and to everything that's been said, and it's just in the totality of things that are important, it's just one more thing that's important, and it's hard in the affordable housing space. It's just when there's so many priorities and so many different funders and so many different structures of utility bills, rates, how the meters are set up, like it's just like a whole nother thing you got to figure out, and people are getting a lot better at it, but still taking time.
Yeah. We're 12 years in and we're still educating people on how to figure out how big their building is. That was a big struggle for us. And how you find it in portfolio manager terms. So yeah, something as simple as you think is simple is not that simple. So I thank you so much. That was super, that was a really interesting conversation. So thank you all. I'll hand it back to Elena.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah. And just to echo what Katie said, thank you all for joining us and sharing a little bit from each of your worlds on benchmarking. I know this past hour has been an invaluable resource for our attendees. And at least on my end, I know I learned a great deal from each of your presentations. So thank you. And then just for those who are in attendance with us today, I wanted to make a quick light reminder that this is part of the larger call series that we're hosting. So tune in on November 5th for their next call on funding and financing multifamily buildings. And with that, thank you all again for joining us today and hope to see you at the next one. Bye.
Thank you all.